University College of Medicine. He's written more articles, books, chapters than you would like me to list, because that would use his whole time. He's also received many awards, but what I really want to tell you is just a couple sentences about Mark as a person. I'm sure there are many people in this room, and I know there are many in my country, who would tell you stories about how Mark has helped them, supported them, nurtured them, mentored them. So in addition to offering us his wisdom, he also offers us his person, and for that I am very appreciative. Mark.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to thank Suzanne and the organizers for such a marvelous conference, very intellectually stimulating, and for creating a good sense of community while we are here. I want to thank them for the privilege of being able to speak in this venue, because I know many of you have much more important things to say, and you should be up here. So it's a real privilege, and I thank you for joining us after lunch. And I do want to thank the translators, because I've been very appreciative of how well and how effective they've been. So my topic is life design in the 21st century. And when I go to a conference, I listen very, very attentively to the opening, because it's like a client. The first things the client says in the first few minutes set the tone for everything that will happen. So what I heard at the opening was an outline of my talk. So Mrs. Negreri started by saying that part of our responsibility is to combat the social fracture that people are now experiencing in the Western world. And then the dean talked about the need to think about changing how we facilitate the integration of young people into adult life. Mr. Oakart said guidance is restructured in times of crisis, which I believe is very important and very true. And then Professor Guichard suggested that part of the restructuring is to focus on reflexivity, to help young people and adults and people getting ready to retire to have a framework to organize their life. So the biggest idea for me today, the biggest idea always, is adaptation. That every creature on earth, every living creature, must adapt to survive. That is the thing that we all share all over the world. And what it means is to come to some equilibrium, to some fit with our environment. And this adaptation is to help us survive. That is the purpose of culture. French culture is an adaptive mechanism. It is a mechanism to help people make it in the world. So as we adapt to culture, it increases our chance of being alive tomorrow, of having some self-satisfaction, family satisfaction, and having families to perpetuate the culture. So this is why guidance, psychometrics have always focused on fit, because from Latin, adapt means fit. So vocational guidance tries to help the actor of any age figure out where they fit in the world. What is their niche, where they can fit in? And to help young people, every culture tells stories. Every culture has narratives. We have our myths, we have our religious stories, we have movies, we have theaters, and these are sources of the self. These stories and traditions are generalizable enough that we can adapt and make them our own and make them a script to our life. So culture gives story. Culture gives a sense of what is it all about. And the story is taught to us by our family, who tries to help us learn in the beginning. Then religion teaches us the story. I'm Catholic. In Catholic religion, we have the sacraments. And if you think about them, they talk about the different stages of life: baptism, confirmation, marriage. And then the schools continue the socialization, as does theater. And it's to help us come together with some common story, some bigger story. And these stories have chapters. They have an order, they have a beginning, they have a middle, they have an end, and they give us a sequence. First you go to school, then you get a job, then you have a partnership, and then you may have children. And what has happened, one of the first speakers talked about the agricultural economy, then the industrial economy, and then now the technological or digital economy. What happened when we went from farm to city? In the United States and France, about 1910, more people lived in city than on the farm. When you came to the city increased the standardization of the script. They increased the pressure to follow the story for city living. So by 1960, in most Western societies, we have had a fairly uniform script, life story to follow. And if you didn't follow, you may be penalized. You may be outcast by society. I tell a joke. Jokes are very hard to tell in a second language, but a joke that I tell: what do you call somebody who speaks 3 languages? Trilingual. What do you call somebody who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call somebody who speaks 1 language? American. And part of our standardization, my father spoke 7 languages, and I used to beg him to teach me our first language, Lithuanian, because I would sit and listen to him and his brothers and my grandmother talk, and I begged, and he said, no, you have to be American. If you speak 2 languages, it means you are a displaced person, that you don't belong here. Standardization. And so it becomes, we had the metaphor of the melting pot, to take everything and make it one. Now we talk about the salad bowl with many ingredients. So the institutions tightened the story, and males and female stories came together, and even across ethnic groups and races, the story came together. Of course, there were broad patterns of inequality and stereotype, but the basic story got tighter and tighter, and it got so tight that after World War II, Erik Erikson could write down, here is the story of the life. Here are the 8 stages. First, you learn how to trust. Then you learn autonomy. Then you learn this. And this became the framework that we teach in the schools and that many people live by. In our field, Charlotte Bühler from Vienna, the first professor of psychology at the University of Vienna, Freud and Adler both wanted to be professor, and their factions fought, and the solution was Charlotte Bühler, who eventually moved to America and is known as the mother of humanistic psychology. Her graduate students were the first to study gerontology. She had them go and take the life story from 45 people in a retirement home. She read the stories and said, there's 5 chapters. There's growth, there's exploration, there's establishment. And then Donald Super says, that's the career. And so we had, after World War II, in addition to the fitting guidance, we have career education, which talks to people about how to climb the hierarchy of success. One of the opening speakers talked about the pyramid. Career education is about progressing up the pyramid. And we did not have careers in the Western world till we had large corporations. Corporations have a bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy's value is career. And so you climb the ladder in the bureaucracy. That's why until the 50s, we always talked about vocational guidance. We never talked about career. But it was a new perspective that fit people moving to the suburbs, that fit people working in international corporations, that fit career path in companies. So we then had two services. We had vocational guidance in France. We had the great Henri Perron at Initope, established tremendous methods and techniques for guidance. But in addition, as another service, we had career education, teaching people how to succeed in the business organizational world. Today, we would call that coaching. In the United States in the 70s, the script had become so strong that these books were tremendously popular. Seasons of a Man and Woman's Life, Adaptation to Life. Gail Shahi made millions of dollars by the book Passages, because it says, when you're 20, this happens. When you're 25, this happens. When you're 30. So we were all reading, what are we supposed to be doing? What comes next? And here was the story. You entered the adult world, then you have the age 30 transition. You could have it at 28, you could have it at 31, but you had the transition. And then you settled down, and then you had your midlife crisis or existential neurosis, and then we had all these things planned and were expected. And if you didn't have a midlife crisis, you wondered, what's wrong with me? Why do I not have a crisis? And within these stages, they pattern the roles. And a role to me is identity to me is self in social role. So you have identity as a worker, as a parent, as a leisurite. As many social roles you have multiple identities. This man was on American TV running for election as a politician. He stands up and says, you know me. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a teacher, I'm a veteran, I'm a conservative. And you do know him. You do know his social identity. You do know if you want to have lunch with him or not, because there's enough information about his script. Yes? Yes. So now we have Super made the rainbow, and when Super was forced to retire at age 65, he went to England and worked 10 more years at Cambridge with Tony Watts, but he couldn't figure out, now that my work life is done, what am I supposed to do? And so he became very interested in leisure activities and the role of a retiree. So he drew this rainbow of, it should be different colors. At different stages of life, different roles are more important. But we have in our society core roles that we expect everybody to do. We expect everybody to work. If you're a homemaker, you work hard at the home. If you're a billionaire, you do volunteer work, or you're a parasite to us. Work is a clinging to our reality. And friends, you must be a good citizen, a friend, a member of the community, and you must love somebody. So when somebody says in the Western world, what is the meaning of life? We say work, friends, and love. Unless you're Sigmund Freud, who's very shy, you say work and love. No friends. Right? Right? So this is what we teach young people. This is life. This is life design. Who are you? Before we care what job, are you going to work? Are you going to invest yourself in contributing to the community? Are you going to make friends? Are you going to cooperate? Are you going to help the elderly in the neighborhood? Are you going to love somebody? Are you going to form a life partnership, have intimacy? This is your life, and how How then do you organize? Then you choose what kind of work, who will be your friends, who will be your partner. But first, what is life about? And this is true. This is true. If you disagree with me, you are crazy. See, insane is a social word. Insane means you violate the common sense. This is true because we say so. We say life is work, friends, and love. Near my home is a community called Shaker Heights. It was founded by Shakers. And when I meet students from Shaker Heights, I say, have you ever met a Shaker? And they don't know what I'm talking about. The Shaker religion said life is work and worship. No sex. No sex. That's why nobody's met a Shaker. All now Shakers have been adopted or converted. They had a beautiful saying, hands to work, hearts to God. And because that is their truth, that is their script, that is their story, they're gone. Okay? So we have a story, and it is our job. Everybody in this room is a representative of the common sense. When we work with anybody, we represent society to them. We represent the community. We try to help them understand, here's the story, here's the part you're forgetting about, or here's the part your family didn't teach you. Our job is to represent reality and to teach reality and then teach where you fit in reality. Now, during the 1970s, one of the opening speakers talked about 1973, the oil crisis. Some sociologists think that's when our world began to change. And that in the 70s, there was all these new options. Remember the philosopher who spoke with us, who used the sentence, everything is allowed, but nothing is possible? Remember? Everything is allowed, but nothing is... That's the 1970s. Free love, drugs, experimentation, new options. But in the end, by the 90s, when we look back, it was disorderly and it was chaos. So the standardization that had been building and tightening started to fall apart. And people started, instead of being standardized by institution, to be individualized. The great institutions, in America, the great religions, the great companies, the motor industry is gone, the automobile industry is gone, the General Electric, the big institutions that said, we will hold you, we will give you a life, we will give you direction, they're gone. And so there is nobody to hold us. There's no big institutions. So it means that we must rely on ourselves. So in advanced societies in Europe, North America, this has caused profound change. That's why we say it's a digital revolution. It's a technological revolution. It's a social fracture. It has become, for young people and even for us, the world is less predicted, less regulated, less stable, less orderly. And so, as the world has become deinstitutionalized, people must rely on themselves because the traditional guidelines are slowly disappearing and people have many, many, many more choices to make because they are not being given to them. We don't have the ability to predict our life story. There is greater choice, there is greater flexibility, but this is also a very precarious freedom because we become uncertain in a risk society. So this is the social fracture we hear about. We've gone from the institutionalization of our lives to the individualization. Industrialization gave us a framework, a story, a pattern, but digitalization takes it away. Urbanization, when we came to cities, we had to learn the rules of living together. In America, Frank Parsons' career guidance started. It was a social work agency called Breadwinners Institute for working people from other countries. And what they did before guidance was teach citizenship. Here's the English language, here's the history of the country, here's how you're to behave. And then to help the lost children, they formed vocational guidance. They used that phrase for the first time in 1908. But it was really child saving, to help the children who were lost, who were displaced. And now instead of immigration, instead of people coming to a country and staying, we have Evan Lohr, director of Untitled. One of his major interests is mobile employees. You may have children who have jobs in China, and then next year they'll be in Canada. People are now world workers, moving from place to place. The organizations that held us, the organizations, like a family holds a child. The family holds the child, and the family teaches the child and gives boundaries and rules and expectations and love. Organizations held adults. They gave us salary, pension, health care, friendship, social networks. But now organizations are disappearing and we have organizing. And these are the words in English that describe that. They're made smaller, downsized, flat instead of a pyramid, flat, restructured, learning, post-corporate. So General Electric and Chevrolet, General Motors, these big things that held people where you could develop your career are gone. And in its place, instead of career, now they talk about de-jobbing. We have jobless work. Henry Ford once said, "I only want a man's hands. Why do I have to hire the whole man?" That's what they're getting now. Jobless work. They want work, not workers. They want to pay you for a project, for an assignment, and not have a social contract with you, not hold you. Use your work and goodbye. You understand? De-jobbing. In the United States, 1 in 4 workers has been with the current employer for less than a year. You don't develop a career in a year. 1 in 2 workers has been with the current employer for less than 5 years. About 2/3 of young German workers do not have permanent jobs. They have fixed-term contracts. They have work. They don't have jobs. And so these are the new words. Employees are temporary, contingent, they come and go, casual, contract, freelance, part-time, external, atypical. 24% of American workers are part-time. In the Obama administration response to the Great Recession, 63% of the new jobs are part-time. Part-time. And so the new model of what is work, Lester, you said New Zealand, you're good at making movies. Movies is the new model. If you're making a movie, you hire 300 people, they work together for 3 years, they make the movie, and they're fired, they're gone. And they hope to make somebody hire them to make a new movie. You understand? The work is paid for, but the worker is mobile. And we're starting the new trend of not giving you an office. Even professors are going to take the office away. It's called hoteling. So if you work at home, you work in a quick restaurant with free Wi-Fi, and if you need an office, you go in and you have a desk and first come, first serve, and for your permanence, you get 1 drawer with a lock. So this is part of the new social arrangement of work. And it's our job to help young people and adults adjust to this. So we've gone from the early 20th century assembly line to the mid-century career ladder in an organization, And now we have the bullseye. 40% of workers are in the middle with traditional standard jobs with benefits, surrounded by 40% of people who are vulnerable, contingent, freelance, part-time, come and go, surrounded by 20% who are fragile and out of work and in trouble. So the whole metaphor, it's no longer assembly line, it's no longer corporate pyramid, it's the bullseye. So this is called, by the sociologists, the second demographic revolution. Individualization of the life course started in Northern Europe, spreads to the rest of the developed world very quickly. And it's making transition from school to work a nightmare for young people. It's become confused, complex. They don't know what to do. It's uncertain, it's risky, they're scared, and they need us to hold them. Since the corporation isn't going to hold them, they need somebody to explain, to hold, to inspire, to help. This was our script. This was our script in Europe. You complete school, get your own little apartment, get a full-time job, form a intimate partnership, become a parent. You can read on the bottom, in 1960, about 80% of women followed this script. By 2000, less than 50%. By 2010, less than 40%. The standard script is gone. And so we have new behaviors: living alone, unmarried cohabitation, out of wedlock birth. How do you like the word wedlock? Locked in the, right? Standardized, the rules, you don't leave. Wedlock. In 2006, for the first time in our history, the majority of births to women under 30 were out of marriage. Out of marriage. So we're having a blurring. The old script is disappearing, and the individualization means that people can't plan a life. They can't plan their life. They have to prepare for it. They have to develop skills. They have to learn to be flexible, because the stable society that we could make plans with is gone. And to me, this great Spanish poem, it says it perfectly. Traveler, your footprints are the path and nothing more. Traveler, there is no path. Your path is made by walking. By walking, the path is made, and when you look back, you'll see a road never to be trodden again. This is the new career. There is no path. And in rock and roll, they say, it's hard to say who you are these days, but you run on anyway. We used to be able to create hope by populating the future with events. You used to be able to ask a high school student, write down 10 things that will happen to you by the age of 25, and they could do it. And then they could plan for it, get ready for it, and move towards it. Now, they don't know. So now we've moved, as Beck calls it, to a society that's full of risk and uncertainty. Uncertainty, anxiety, people are not sure. And when you're not sure, what do? You hesitate. You postpone. You don't jump up ahead because you're not sure. You're not sure. So this has created a new life stage. In 1910, 1912, a new life stage was created by industrialization called adolescence. On the farm, you had puberty, and a year or two later, you were married. You went from child to adult. There was no adolescence. Industrialization created adolescence, and now digitalization has created this life stage called emerging adulthood. 19 to 29. You've heard so many people at our conference talk about how many people, what percent in each country this age group is out of work. You know, we've heard almost every place we've been, we've heard about them. And so they are no longer children, they're not adolescents, but yet They can't make a place. With a little part-time job, they can't even afford an apartment. They can't form social connections. And so we also heard this phrase, I've heard it at 3 different sessions, not in employment, education, or training. Not in employment, education, or training. So they're trapped. They're not teenagers, they're not adolescents, but they haven't been able to establish a place for themselves in the world as an adult. In the United States, we call them boomerang children. They go away, they go to college, and then they come back. In Japan, they're called parasite singles. Generation Vex. 2009, England had almost 1 million neat youth, and some people are saying that's broken Britain. 40% of them live in a household where no one is employed. Nobody in the house has a job. And so this number is even greater in Spain, in Turkey, in Mexico, and Italy. They are emerging adults who are postponing, hesitating, hoping to find something. Because the identifiable paths are gone. The scripts are disappearing, and so they have to try to adapt. This picture is the image. The second meaning, the original French word, I'm not very good at pronunciation, career. The second meaning was path. And Donald Super and others talked about career as a path through life, career as a trajectory. But today, we have new words, boundaryless career, because no company will hold you. Nobody is holding you. There's no bonds. Some people call it protean, where you have to change yourself to fit the situation. Or kaleidoscope, you know, the children's toy where you turn the glass and you get different pictures. Portfolio, a skill, career, customized. All this language, we as a profession in France and in English-speaking countries are creating a new language to describe new challenges, new situation. And so some of us have returned to the original meaning of career, which means cart, carriage, chariot, or car. And your cart, the chariot that you ride in, is your story. And it's a story that you have individually constructed. You haven't have the security of the predictable life. It's been de-ritualized, so you have to explore yourself and construct yourself. Professor Guichard talks about self-construction and reflexivity. This is what he means. You must make you. You must make your life. You must create your biography. And we have many opportunities, many constraints, so people have to figure out what are their options. What are their options? The traditions have moved away from us, and people now are more and more responsible for making their life. You can't pick a career. I'm going to work at IBM for 35 years. Can't do that anymore. Can't do that. You have to assume much more responsibility for understanding what you need and what goals will make you feel safe, and then building a structure, building an arrangement of work, friends, love, leisure, and prayer. So Giddens talks about de-traditionalizations. It's the diminished power of tradition to help us. And we need to rely on what is our story, what is our family story. I've been fascinated by the very newest research that I've seen about individual young people creating a life, creating a story. The newest research I've seen says the ones who are best able to do it know the story of their family. They know a family story from which they become a chapter. And so help your own family. Make sure your family knows its history, its tradition, where you come from, what you believe, what you value, what your truths are, because it'll make it easier for them to make their own story. And now we have a little 20 questions, yes and no, to see how well people know their family story. Where did your mother and father meet? What year did they get married? How did they do in school? What was the first crisis in their life? People who know the family story do better on the biography of their own choice. The life course has become a biography of your own choice where you weigh the alternatives and figure out what you do. And this, maybe nobody in the room agrees, but this to me is the difference between guidance and counseling. Guidance, tremendously important, and where you're getting better and better and better, is about resemblance. Who do you look like? Where do you fit? Where do people like you work? Where do people like you live? Where do people like you worship? Who do you resemble? And we're going to guide you to live with them. Counseling is about uniqueness. You are the only you in the world. You have a unique story. Who are you? Tell me who you are as a person. So guidance can be done one at a time, but could be done in groups, can be done by technology, but counseling requires dialogue to hear the story. It can be at a distance, but for me, guidance, who you look like, who you resemble, counseling, how are you unique? We can do the two together, or you can do them separate. It's up to you. But they have different goals. So counseling helps individuals construct their own lives, their own identities, the self-construction, the career construction, by looking what's available in their social context. What are their opportunities? What can they do? Then they have to reconstruct, because in 5 years, it'll fall apart, or 6 years or 7 years. They won't have 30-year stability like we've had. So they have to construct and reconstruct. And these are the words I read. Jean talks about self-construction, and Christiane Scheersman talks about self-production, self-assembly, self-organization, to put your life together. And remember now that work will not love you back. Work in the 20th century would hold you, would give you an identity, would give you a permanence, would give you friends and coworkers, salary, health benefits, pension, even a place to live. But today, work doesn't have that power. So the 20th century emphasized work gives identity. Work is the most important. Today, when work is de-jobbed, temporary, impermanent, periodic, your friends will love you back. Your family will love you back. Your church, synagogue, temple, people will love you back. So we need to help people design a life. What is most important? First, is the most important thing place? Is the most important thing that I live here in Montpellier? That comes first. Or is the most important thing that I have somebody to love, and that I'm with my family and friends? We have to help people in guidance think about life, not because work used to make a decision, then everything followed. Now work will not love you back. So help people understand at the last session, at the closing of the last session, somebody said, we need more attention to leisure. Of course. If you can't be you at work, where can you be you? You can be you on Saturday and Sunday when you're freest to be yourself. So we want to help people design lives and become competent at figuring out, even if they have to have a part-time job that's not so good, they can have a great life with friends, love, spirituality, leisure. Maybe you disagree. But they have to do biography. We have to help people say, who are you? What do you need? What is your intention? Not just make a decision, make a choice. What is your intention in life? What is your purpose? And people have different strategies. They can be fast. They can be 16, drop out of school, get in a relationship, or they can be slow, like some in this room are 30 years old and still doctoral students and will get married when they're 40. Different strategies, different speeds, different ways of doing it. So individualization. Now, The program, our program together, said guidance, a citizen's right. Of course it's a citizen's right, but it's our responsibility. If it's a right, who is responsible for fulfilling the need, for meeting the obligation? It is the community. It is us. So the program to me should be career guidance, our responsibility to respond to the needs of the new generation. And how is our society responding? We've turned to story. Agriculture, community, the answers were in religion. Industrial society, the answers are science. 21st century, the answer is story. Not fact, not scientific fact, but your truth, your personal truth, what you believe in, what you subscribe to, what you live for. And this narrative term, we have narrative psychology, we have narrative ethics. It used to be the golden rule, the golden rule, the golden rule. Now it's, what's the situation? What would be the most helpful, useful thing in that story context? So it's always, now what is the story? What is the right thing here? Have narrative law, narrative medicine. At my medical school, we say, patient is the author, physician is the editor. We listen to the story of their pain, to the story their symptoms tell, and then try to edit the story. We have, of course, narrative history, and we have narrative counseling now. We have counseling about uniqueness, counseling about story. We don't get rid of guidance. Guidance is very important. It's about resemblance. But we also want to know, who are you? Who are you? And existing theories haven't helped us a lot with counseling. Tremendous help with guidance, but not so much counseling. So guidance for fit, but individual differences, psychometric differences, your percentile score on different tests, it's a difference. It's not you. It's not you. If I say you're at the 80th percentile, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Well, you want to know, what is my purpose? What does it mean to me? What matters to me? So individual differences for who you resemble, but counseling for individuality, counseling to construct your career. 3 main services, all valuable, all have their place, all respect each other, and some people do one and not the other. Some people do all 3, some people do 2, but they are 3 different paradigms. And we have colleagues all over the world. Remember, Mr. Ogart said, in times of crisis, we restructure counseling. Here are people restructuring counseling. Crumbolt's in the United States. He started to talk about planned happenstance. Then he realized, no plan, you can't plan, so it's now happenstance. Mary Sue Richards, not fit people into work. Fit work into people's lives. Not fit people into work. Fit work into people's lives. How can they use work to be more whole, to be more complete, to be more the person they were meant to be. On the bottom, we have colleagues from Australia, and then on the top, Hazel Reed, Jenny Bimrose, and then South Africa, Mark Watson, Cobus Marie. Several are here at this conference. And in France, we have our greatest international leader, Jean Guichard. We call him a thought leader, a leader of thinking, our great teacher. And of course, Valerie Cohn-Scalé from Initope, and Jacques Piot from Bordeaux. And then, of course, more French speakers, Jean-Pierre Duval and Jérôme Rossier. And in Quebec, some of you will see next year, Charles Bijot. So all over the world, people are saying, let's try some new things. This is the group that Jean leads. You see him humbly standing in the back. He should be right in the front, in the middle. But it's an international group, and we spent 3 days trying to decide, what do we call our new approach? And we started career construction. Well, Maria Eduarda Duarte says, in Portugal, that means you build a house. That's no good. And then somebody said design, and Jean says, well, in France, that means you make dresses. And then somebody said intelligent or life design. I said, United States, that's intelligent design, that's creation. We never could find a word. So after 3 days, we said life design. We don't like it, but we love it now. So it's a problem of language, it's career management, but to find an international word for the new world, it's the same thing that happened with career. When they started using the word career, John Holland wrote an obituary for vocational guidance with a black box around it. So anyway, life design, and we have our good friend Guy Soye gave us a little brand there, so we have our little brand. But what does it really mean? In this new world, we need 2 meta competencies. Life design is about 2 things: adaptability and identity. Adaptability and identity. And when Evan talked about paradigm shift, our paradigm shift is from maturity to adaptability. Maturity means ripe, unfolding, growing, like a plant has an epigenetic structure. It unfolds, everything is predictable, it matures. That's what we could do in the 20th century. In a risk society with its uncertainty, we must be prepared to adapt. So we have an adaptability research group, and instead of creating in English an adaptability measure, we worked together. We worked at different conventions for 4 years and together made an inventory of adaptability. It's now available in 13 languages, and the French language, if you want some information or assistance, Jacques Piot at Bordeaux or Jerome, who's here today, have done wonderful work on the French version. But what it's about is it's measuring how prepared people are to adapt and develop themselves. How concerned are they about figuring out the future? How anxious are they? How aware? And then how conscientious? Are they willing to take some responsibility for their own life? Those who are unconcerned, we have to go find. They really are fragile. They're not coming to us for hope because they're hopeless. They're not coming for help because they're hopeless. Our major clients are conscientious and want to get ready. And curiosity. Are you exploring? Are you looking? Are you thinking? You always must be looking for the next job. What is a good job today? A good job is a job that gets you ready for the next job. It gets you skills, it builds your resume, it gets you ready for next. And then confidence, self-esteem. I can do this. I can be a citizen. I can love people. And here is the words we hear at the conference about adaptability. We heard this morning, don't prepare people for employment. Don't prepare for a job. Prepare them for a lifetime of employability skills, lifelong learning, help them build career capital, flex security. Your security is in your flexibility. Have a life course strategy, job crafting, career roles, preparedness, emotional labor. See, these are our new words. There's a new psychological contract. Second, we've shifted from personality. Personality is a 20th century word. In the 19th century, it was character. You were to have character, and everybody was to be virtuous, honest, hardworking, and a nice person. When you moved to the city, you had to be self-expressive and put on your mask, your persona. Personality is the mask you wear in the city. Today, it's not about personality and stable traits, enduring traits. It's about identity, knowing who you are, knowing your story, knowing your intention, so you can work your identity. A woman named Ibera at Yale has this beautiful phrase, working identity. It's your identity as a worker, but you're always working on your identity. You have to keep it going. In an uncertain world, the only certainty you have is inside your own heart and in the bonds of your loving family and friends and religion. The world doesn't offer security. So you have to do biography. You have to have your own internal guidance. You have to be reflexive and prepare. And here's the new words, a German word, biographicity. It means using your biography to make choices about transitions, using your story when it's time to choose something new. Life design, we've talked about. Narratability, one of the goals of counseling is the person can leave counseling and tell their story better. They can go home and say to their family a clearer, more continuous, coherent, unified story. They can say who they are better. The goal of guidance, Holland always said, the most important thing about Holland's technique is to teach people the hexagon, to teach them how the world is organized, how the world works. Very valuable, different than telling who you are. What is your calling? We heard this at the conference. What is your passion? Volition. How much choice do you really have about a job? How much choice, how much volition truly is in there? And what does meaning? What does this mean to you? What does work satisfy? Who does it matter to? Who does it matter to? Who cares what work you do? And construct a self and career construction. This is a tool we use, some of us use, for life designing about identity. In English, it's my career story. In French, you have to read, I can't pronounce, but these are freely available on our website. None of us want to make money. We want to do something that means something to us and matters to you. I'm very skeptical about people who are selling. These are our contribution. We make our living somewhere else. So, career management, Phil Jarvis talks, it could have been the same, life design, managing a life. You can't develop in an unstable medium. You have to manage the crisis. So we've gone from vocational choice with Henri Perron, which we still use guidance, to career development with organizational careers. We still use career education. But for career management, we've turned to story, and where success in your life, not in your work, in your life, depends on learning and becoming rather than deciding. And these are services we offer as a community, we offer to our citizens. We offer guidance and advising, academic advising. We can guide the lost. We can say who you look like, who you resemble, where you should explore, where you might fit. We also offer career education and information. We teach people information about this is the world, this is the opportunities, learn these skills. And when we do it with high school and college, we say career education. When you do it with the president of a company, it's now career coaching. But coaching, career education, very important services. And then we have life design and counseling. Career counseling focuses mostly on your story about work, the story you tell of your working life. Life design, bigger. What is your life? Who are you? What's important to you? And you can live a very, very, very good life with an adequate job. And it might even be better. Many of you know about the failure of success. You have friends who are very successful, but nobody loves them. They have nobody to share their success with. So one of the biggest topics in American business world, American executives, American successful people, is not climbing the ladder to the next step. It's balancing. How do I balance my work with my family, with myself, my relationships? We want you to make an enjoyable, satisfying life where you contribute to others. Here's the website where you have the free materials. I'll put it back on in a minute. But notice Notice what I said. In the beginning, they gave my speech. We are combating the social fracture of moving from industrialization to technology and digitalization. And we are all in this room thinking about, how can we help, how can we improve our methods of integrating young people into the adult world before they're 30. And to do this, as Mr. Ogar tells us, let's restructure, let's fine-tune, let's revise, not throw away all of the wonderful things that our elders have given us, not throw away our tradition, not throw away our legacy, but do our contribution, improve it for the next generation, make it a little bit better for the next group who comes along. And let's consider some of the advice of our thought leaders, those among us who are able to try to innovate. And notice what I'm saying. In this room, what we need is to be more adaptable and to clarify our identity, to tell our story better to the government, to policymakers, to the community. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we are helping our city, our community, our country adapt. People need us like they needed us 100 years ago. It's a time of great fracture. And we are the glue. We are the people who understand what's changed. Your neighbors on your street are still hoping the world goes back to normal. But we know that the world is not going backwards. And we know that our mission has always been not career guidance, vocational guidance, but life planning, life education. If you read the text 100 years ago, they talked about life and life purpose, and then slowly they changed the words to vocation. We need to help people think about their place in the world and what opportunities they have and how to make the best of it. And I, for one, am very proud to be a member of this community, this group who has dedicated their lives to helping succeeding generations flourish in a society that's at risk. And for that, I thank you and I compliment you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now you're clapping for me, so you want to stop. Mark, on behalf of the association, I want to thank you again for not only sharing your ideas, but as you always do, sharing yourself with us. And that's very much appreciated. So one more time.